Bob Balkind, Deputy Commissioner of Dutchess County Public Works. He's here with us tonight to discuss a pending project in the town of East Fishkill. Have you seen last year there were some changes made to the Palen Road Bridge, and Bob's here tonight to talk about the scope of the entire project that the county is planning on our Palen Road Bridge. So, Bob, if you would, thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor. Just some introductions. Noel Nilly, our Commissioner of Public Works, isn't here tonight. She had other business to attend to. As the Supervisor mentioned, my name is Bob Balkind. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Public Works for Dutchess County. And with me tonight, Matt Dukavich from the Engineering Department. Matt's the engineer in charge of the project, handling the design. The design is done by Majeski and Masters, one of our consultants, and Matt has been managing the project with them. So I just want to talk a little bit about why the bridge needs work. First of all, what we considered, what we decided was the preferred alternative and why, the environmental studies and findings that we made, traffic impacts, and then right-of-way that we need, and then the schedules. I'll go pretty quick. I don't think it'll take more than 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The Palen Road Bridge, we call it Bridge E9. It's been a bridge with a deficient structural rating for a number of years. We've known it for quite some time, and Palen Road is one of the busier roads in our county highway system. Matt, what's the AAD, up in 9,000 or? Yeah, but 9,600 cars, almost 10,000 cars a day. Obviously, it's a main route to IBM Fishkill, or the East Fishkill plant, and a connection between Route 82 and 52. It's a very, very busy road. And this bridge is extremely narrow. It was narrow before we had to fix the railings last year. It got a little narrower when we did that. The beams, basically what's driving this project is that the beams are getting worn out. The precast concrete beams are getting structurally deficient. They've needed some repair work over the years. The guide railing has needed repair work. And for anybody that travels the road, you know how narrow it is and how dangerous it is when two vehicles are trying to cross that bridge at the same time, especially if one of those vehicles is a truck or a larger vehicle. It becomes very difficult, very dangerous. You probably are aware that a gentleman here in the fire service, there's been a lot of accidents at the bridge. We've had cars go off the bridge into the creek. A lot of head-on, not a lot of head-ons, but a lot of sideswipe accidents and things like that. So for all those reasons, the bridge needed work. So we looked at a couple of alternatives when we decided this bridge had to be done. We looked at basically the null alternative, which is something we always have to look at. The null alternative means we do nothing to the bridge except maintain it, and that becomes very expensive. And in fact, on this particular bridge, because of the nature of the beams, they're precast concrete beams. Once the reinforcing strands start to go in them, there's not a lot you can do effectively to repair them and bring them up to full strength. So we ruled that out as not meeting the needs of our project. We looked at a superstructure replacement, and we looked at a replacement of the entire bridge. We had our engineers look carefully at the foundations, the footings, the abutments, the center pier, and we looked at the deck and the superstructure itself. It was concluded by our consultants that the substructures, the footings, the foundations, the abutments, the pier, they were okay. And in fact, to replace the bridge entirely and to remove that center pier and put just a single span all the way across would have either lowered the bridge, it would have made a thicker bridge system, and that means we would have had to push the bridge bottom further down toward the water, decreasing the opening of the waterway, or we would have had to raise the bridge significantly, which would have been tough to make that alignment correctly. The superstructure replacement basically met all the project needs. The foundations are good, the footings are good. While we have the top of the bridge off, we're going to put scour mitigation measures along the foundations to prevent scour, to make those foundations and abutments last longer. And the new superstructure gives us the opportunity to make a much wider bridge deck section. Right now, this top view of the bridge, it's about a 22-foot curb to curb, Matt, is that right? Oh, close to 22 feet, which means really you're looking at two 10-foot lanes with a 1-foot shoulder on each side pretty much. 10-foot lanes are very narrow lanes to begin with. And then when you look at the alignment, the geometry of the road as it snakes down along the bridge, it's just very difficult to get 2 cars across there, as you know. The final bridge section that we're talking about building is going to be 2 12-foot lanes and a 2.5-foot shoulder on each side. So it's a significantly wider bridge section. 12-foot lanes are the standard lanes for an interstate. So these are full traffic compatible lanes. Any legally sized vehicle can be accommodated in these lanes without any problem. And we have the 2.5-foot shoulders on each side. The shoulders will accommodate some pedestrian and bicycle traffic, although it's not a 4 or a 5-foot shoulder. It's still better than what we have now, and we think it'll work as we move into the future. It's going to be a cast-in-place concrete deck on steel I-beams, and it'll be a system, a bridge system that'll be maintenance-free for a long time. The bridge system will include new 4-rail bridge rails, which are good for vehicles, and they're pedestrian compliant rails, and they'll be full strength, so that they should have no problems if they were to be struck. But we think the likelihood is very low because the lanes and the shoulders are going to be so much wider. The county did a full environmental study for this project. It was a Seeker Type 2 project because it qualifies on the Seeker Type 2 list as a replacement of a transportation facility in kind without expansion of any travel lanes or any major expansion of the facility. It's basically replacing the bridge in the same place with a wider bridge deck. We looked at endangered species, we looked at wetlands, we had pre-application meetings with DEC. It's important for everybody to realize that just because we're the county DPW, we're not exempt from any DEC permitting requirements. We have to look at all the endangered species, federal wetlands, state wetlands, all of the issues that everybody else has to look at when they do development. We're also bound by those same rules. There was a potential endangered species identified that we had to mitigate, and that was there were 2 bat species. There was the northern long-eared and the Indiana bat. The mitigation to prevent any potential impacts to those species was that if we had to cut trees down for this project, we have to cut the trees down between November and the end of March. That's the mitigation. Apparently during the season of March all the way through November, during the warm season, the bats could roost in trees near the project. And if we were to take those trees down during that summertime, that could injure or harass certain species that may be roosting in the trees. So the mitigation is take the trees down while the bats are hibernating, and that way when the bats come out, they'll find other trees if those trees aren't there. So we've done that. You may have noticed, you may not have noticed, but we've taken trees down near the bridge in preparation of doing this project. There were some minor wetland impacts resulting from the project. Approximately 300 square feet of wetland is to be filled due to the construction of abutment improvements and scour mitigation, and there were no historic or cultural resources impacted by the project. As far as traffic is concerned, while we build the bridge, we're going to keep traffic open on one side at a time. So we're going to put concrete barrier up and guide traffic through one half of the bridge. We're going to set up temporary traffic signals at each end of the project, and each lane of traffic, the northbound will take a turn and go through the lane, and then that'll be turned into red light, and then the southbound traffic will have a chance, and they'll keep alternating back and forth. There will be delays at peak hours in the morning when everybody's heading to the IBM plant, or when commuters are heading up north to Hopewell Junction, but we think it's a better alternative than out and out closing the bridge. And also for emergency responders, ambulance, fire, police, local deliveries, oil trucks, and things like that. It's really helpful to have the bridge open. So we think it's going to be better. Keeping the bridge open to one lane of traffic during construction does delay the project. When you close the site and you let the contractor have at it, they go much quicker. It's a lot safer for them because they're not having to worry about people driving through the work zone. But we think it's worth the extra cost, and we think it's worth the extra time to keep the bridge open during construction. So we're going to try. We're going to do that. That's how the project has been designed. What we typically do, and we'll do in this case also, is that we, Dutchess County, will coordinate with all emergency response services. We let the post office know. We let the school department know. We let fire, ambulance, police, local police, sheriff, state police. Everybody who is a typical user of the bridge, we let them know when the construction will start, when the traffic signals will go up, and we do all that coordination through our emergency response department. So that's just a routine matter of business that we do all the time. If we can get started in May, early June, we think we can get both sides of this bridge built and open to traffic this year by November. Right now, we are in the process of trying to finalize our right-of-way acquisition. We're going through the process of trying to schedule closings. We have, is it 2 property owners? 2. And I believe the town donated some land for the project. And we have, is it one other besides that? Across the creek, right. So we have one other property owner that we're in the process of trying to get a closing scheduled and do all the legal work to get that acquisition taken care of. Depending on how quickly we can move through that process, if we can go out to bid in April, we think we can get the project done this year entirely. If our process of right-of-way acquisition pushes into April and May, and we don't get started till June or July, we're confident we can get one side of the bridge built this year and leave it open to that one-lane traffic scenario all winter long, and finish the other side of the bridge in the spring and summer, and then it'll be completed at that point. Like I said, our goal is to get the bridge completed this year entirely. We're going to try our best, and some things are out of our control. And one of those things is the right-of-way process. It's a legal process that really needs to just take its course. I talked to you about the right-of-way, so that's sort of what we're kind of waiting on now. Matt, do we have all the environmental permits that we need at this point? We do. All we need is the property. So that's really the last piece of the puzzle for us before we can put this out to bid. Again, if we can get going early, we'll be issuing bid solicitations in the spring, opening the bids in April, May, get the contractor out there in June, and get the thing done. If not, it'll winter over, and we'll start up back in the spring when the snow melts next spring, and we'll finish it up probably by June or July of next year. So that's the project in a nutshell. I'll also mention that it is a federal aid project, which means the federal government is sponsoring 80 cents on the dollar for the entire project, both design and construction costs. The county is responsible for the other 20%, although there may be some state funding to offset some of the county share. So it's been years in the making. We were here in the town years ago with a public information meeting, and it's taken basically this long of a process to get through all of our DOT and our federal highway approvals to get to this point where we're ready to build the project. So we're excited to get it built. Matt, do you have an estimate roughly? 1.8 for construction. So $1.8 million, 80% of which is federally funded. So it's important to get that federal funding. Takes a lot more effort to go through that process of federal funding, but obviously 80 cents on the dollar, it's worth trying to get it. So I turn it over to you, Supervisor, if you want to moderate questions and answers.
Well, I would just like to ask one question of my own, and I just have to clarify this. So actually, when you do the project, you're going to keep one lane open, although they're the narrow lanes, and you'll have traffic signals set up so you can at least move one lane of traffic through.
That's correct.
I thought the whole bridge was going to be taken out like the state did on 376 here, and turned out to be a long, long process. So I'm glad to hear of that. And that one lane will be open to school buses, and it won't affect the school routes at all?
Matt, the bridge is posted now, isn't it?
Yeah, 12 tons.
So it may have to stay posted in that same manner.
Oh, school buses can't use it now because of the weight post.
Correct.
Okay.
But when we narrow down to those 2 lanes, I guess we'll have to make a determination as to whether that loading will increase or not. It may not, but it may. Well,
In May, we're taking out, we're going to be on the side that's enough to make them up a couple of
right.
Okay,
So
it's a possibility.
It's a
that
possibility that if we start on the bad side first
Yep.
and take that out of service and rebuild that, the good side that's left may actually support more weight.
Okay.
And we may be able to get a larger vehicle across it.
And add on to that though, if it does end up wearing over, that first stage is where everybody will be, and then
Right.
at that point will be fully below.
Yeah.
So if it does winter over, everybody will have access again.
And the other part is if you do get kicked into next year because the acquisition pushes you back, as you said, what we may have open at that point will be the wider lane. You would be able to do one side, and come winter time, we'll have to shut down for the winter, but you have
Correct.
the wider lane open. So that's
Right.
very, very
Yeah,
desirable.
yeah, that would be the scenario.
Okay, good. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you said that the superstructure is going to be replaced, but the piers and the footings were good. Now, you said the superstructure, the new one that it'll be maintenance-free for a long time. Will that coincide with the deterioration of the footings that are there now?
Yeah, when the evaluation was done to determine whether we would just do a superstructure or replace the bridge entirely, we look at the service life of the superstructure, the new superstructure, and we compare that to what we think the service life remaining of the abutments and the footings are. And by adding those scour mitigation measures to the existing footings now, we think that the superstructure in the abutments and footings will bear out to a 50 to 75-year life.
Oh.
Yep.
Thank you.
When was that bridge originally built? Do you guys have any ideas? No idea? No, I was just curious.
The beams are the genre of the late 60s or
Okay.
early 70s. So I don't know when the footings and the original abutments were built, but obviously there were many bridges there over the decades and centuries. But I would be surprised if the bridge that's there now is much earlier than the 60s,
Okay.
just based on the genre of the concrete beams. We do have that information in our design report.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. That
Yeah.
bridge has lasted a long time.
Yeah, it has. I mean, generally, if you can get a modern bridge now, the design life of a modern bridge is upwards of about 80 to 75 to 100 years. Back in the day, 50 to 75 years was the desired life of a bridge, and a lot of the bridges now are reaching that 50 to 60-year lifespan.
Unfortunately, we know that.
Yeah. A lot of bridges built in the 1930s with all the public works that were done back in the 30s at the end of the Great Depression. Those bridges, most of those are still here, and those, of course, are reaching up to their 80 to 90-year life
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
So we're really starting to see a lot of these bridges need replacement.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Anybody in the board like to ask any questions? Our town engineer would like to ask a
I'll try to
question?
keep it brief if I could. Are the beam seats being replaced or not?
Yeah, they are. We're going to be cutting down the existing abutments and replacing the beam seats entirely. Is that right, Matt? So we're going
So
to
it's a
cut.
little bit more than just the superstructure. You're actually.
Yeah, but
it's
we're.
the top part of the substructure.
Yeah, just the top parts, just enough to rebuild the beam seats and the pedestals. It's not really much of an abutment replacement.
So off the top of your head, do you know what the cure time is for both that pour and then for the superstructure itself before you can load it?
Matt, why don't you?
When you do the abutments, generally you have to wait about, like it's 14 days to put the beams on it. Then the deck itself has to go through a full 28-day cure before you can put traffic on it. So you have, what's that work out to, 42 days of cure time on that?
6 weeks.
Yeah.
6
so
weeks
6
per
weeks.
side, so you got a minimum of 12 weeks of cure. So is that in your schedule to do in 1 year?
Yeah.
That's why the issue of when we get started is going to be essential, because if we're going to get both cure periods in one season, they've
Right.
got to start the demolition now. Not
Yeah.
now, but soon.
Very soon.
So did you give any consideration just push it off a year if you can't start, only because you'll have like 6 months of downtime of one lane with no activity going on at the site?
Yeah, we thought about that, and quite frankly, because of our workload that we have this year, and our projected workload for next year, we feel it's critical to get this built this year. Also, the federal funding is obligated now, and if we don't use that federal funding within 12 months of its obligation, they can rescind it, and we don't want to be in that position.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. During construction, are you going to also maintain that weight restriction so that the contractor can't go over the other side with his equipment?
If we take, the weight restriction now is based on the western beams, right? Is that right? The westernmost beams are the beams that are the weakest. If we have the contractor work on the western side of the bridge first, the eastern side of the bridge may actually have a higher load rating by itself. So we think it probably will, but we'll investigate that in more detail as we get into that.
You'll be limited to the same restriction as the public?
Yeah, whatever the weight limit is for the public, that's what they'll be limited to.
All right.
But hopefully it'll be more than it is now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, if they don't heed by that weight limit and they damage the bridge, then there are implications for them, legal and financial implications for them.
Okay. All right, and that it? Any other questions? Anybody in the audience like to ask any questions about Palen Road Bridge replacement? Okay, Bob, I think you covered that pretty well, and I thank you very much. Hopefully, you get the legal issues resolved quickly, and we can do this in one-year cycle.
Yeah.
But I see you have a plan for in case it goes into the next year,
Yeah.
so I think it's fine.
Well, we thank you. And of course, once we know definitively whether we're going to do it all this year or whether
Yep.
we're going to split it, we'll obviously be reaching out to the town and everybody else that needs to know to make sure you're aware of that schedule.
Good, let us know. We'll put it on the website, we'll put it on our Channel 22, and let the public know, because we're going to have to be diverting a good amount of traffic.
Absolutely.
So, great. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All righty. Well, the town board meeting is going to start in about 4 minutes. Anybody want to take a quick break and come right back? We'll be starting the town board meeting at 7 o'clock. We just have to get rid of some easels here.